as we give you the best Tennessee Titans and watching the Titan Upload Network.
You're watching the Power Hour with your hosts, Michael Bishop and Tyler Staggs.
The Power Hour's on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and as always, thank you for joining us on this fine Monday evening. I wish I could say it was a exciting Monday, one of those Mondays that you just had a lot of interesting topics to talk about, but unfortunately, it has been a very somber day. It's been a very reflective day, especially knowing the situation that we were possibly going to be going into. And it was definitely one of those that just caught a lot of people off guard. It's definitely a very reflective type of day. And it's understandable just how everybody's felt and how they've just expressed themselves through just the news. And we'll discuss that just a moment, but I don't want to keep my partner in crime and good friend Tyler Staggs sitting behind waiting on us to get this thing going, because obviously it's been a very reflective type of day. It's been a very somber day, Tyler. And I mean, of course, we can all just feel the pain, and we can feel just everything that's just transpired through the last 12 hours. But how are you doing this Monday?
Man, this was, me and you were talking about it yesterday. You were actually the one that had sent me some stuff on it. And it was, really at that point, it was just speculation stuff about what this potentially was going to be. But then the speculation actually being true, man, it made for a long Monday. It made for a very sad Monday. And it's just, man, it's been a day since seeing that news this morning.
And to catch everybody up on the news, if you haven't already heard, which it's been one of the biggest news stories of the day. We brought that up. I heard I didn't want to confirm anything till I 100% had just let them come out with the news that possibly was going to come and transpire. I didn't want to be, sometimes it's just not good to be first about anything. And sometimes you just want to wait and just make sure that you let that type of moment with that kind of just gravity just kind of breathe. It was just rumors at that point. We just didn't have anything solid to really just stick it on. But it kind of just felt like you're just bracing for impact for what was going to come. And surely as it did, it just kind of hit everybody out of the left field. And I think just through the perspective of just what we knew, it was really going to be a rough day. And unfortunately, it's basically what came to transpire. And that's where we'll start off with the show. And that's where we'll finish with the show tonight, because I think the topic deserves all of our attention tonight. We had a really interesting show for you tonight, but unfortunately, life kind of just intervenes. And sometimes you just kind of want to put things on the back burner, especially with the gravity of the situation that unfolds. So Tyler and I just talked about that. I believe it was early this morning after the news dropped, and we felt, this show, we can do another week. It's no big deal. This is just more important, and just the whole situation at hand. So I felt it was good to just reflect and just come and just let everybody and have their say and just discuss whatever they want to discuss tonight. just kind of an open floor forum if you wanted to talk with us tonight. But of course, we'll be talking especially about the situation at hand. So, let's jump into our first and our only topic tonight, Tyler, in the kickoff.
And here's the kick.
So to set the day up, as I said, Sunday, we heard there was rumblings through the grapevine that Chris Johnson was going to be on Good Morning America, and there's going to be some really just heavy news that was going to be coming along with it. And a couple of leaks came out, and it was basically he might be diagnosed with ALS. And that's Lou Gehrig's disease to anybody that's not sure exactly what ALS is, and that's all right. So trying to be optimistic, I didn't want to feed into the frenzy. I didn't want to jump into anything that I wasn't 100% sure on. And, we talked about that on a lot of our chats. I talked to Tyler about it, and, it was just kind of a wait and see scenario. As soon as Monday hits, I believe it was about 8:30, and fortunately Chris Johnson came out, with his lovely wife and made that unfortunate revelation to everybody that he is diagnosed with ALS. And unfortunately, Tyler, he has already had it for well over a year, and it's already taken its toll on him. So I think that's really the first place I want to start. And to me, first, to ask the basic question, what was your initial reaction? I mean, understandably, that it was basically kind of a waiting kind of point. It was, we didn't know, but we were probably going to get hit with this news. What was the mood like in the Staggs household?
Yeah, the mood initially was, when everything was going around and before the interview actually came out, I was thinking that if this was the case, if he was diagnosed with ALS, that it was one of those things where, I kind of took it as he had just been, maybe diagnosed and was wanting to kind of get ahead of it there. But then when the interview actually dropped, and seeing that he's had it for a year now, a little over a year, and just how much it has already affected him, it just I know the phrase, your heart dropping to your stomach. It gets used a lot in situations like this, but that's truly what it was. When I saw that interview and saw how, going back and looking at videos of Chris Johnson, just early last year, before finding out and before all this happened, it was oh my gosh, this has just hit so hard, and it feels so quick. It just and like I said, my only reaction was my heart just dropped to my stomach, because in our mind, when you think of Chris Johnson, you think of the picture that you have here, or him. I know he's gone on some podcasts and done some interviews. You think of that, and then seeing him sitting there in that interview, it was no, it just catches you off guard. I don't know any other way to say it. He can't talk now. He has to, I forget. I know his eyes activated, but basically has a system that helps him talk, but he's not actually able to do it himself. And
Yeah.
man, it just like the only way I know to say it is just a heart dropping.
Of course, we want to give a shout out to everybody that's sitting in the chat as well. Good seeing you, Mom. Love you, mean it. And of course, our good buddy Gary from What's Shaking Titans. Good seeing you too. And yeah, it's been a very somber day. It's been a very reflective day. And we'll definitely touch a lot on that because CJ is going to be front and center the entire night. And anybody that wants to jump in on the chat and just get anything off your chest or just feel like just sharing a memory of CJ or just giving your thoughts and prayers and reflections, that means just as much as well. I mean, it hit just like a Mack truck, Ty. And I mean, just the whole weight of everything and just seeing him on the chair and just communicating through his pad and just knowing that he's lost so much muscle mass and it's really took an effect on him over just the course of a year. It really just it brought tears to my eye, and I'm not gonna lie, it really hit me because this was a young man that I just thoroughly enjoyed watching every chance he played on Sunday. There was a great representative and ambassador to the city of Nashville and the NFL, and was just an electric player that you see maybe once in a generation for somebody that has that kind of just impact. But it's bigger than just all that today. It's much more symbolic. It's much more emotional. It's much more just empathetic in just a way of just how much this young man's meant so much to many walks of life and just everyone that's ever been in contact with him or watched him play or had the opportunity to know him on a personal level as a teammate, as a coach, as a celebrity that's enjoyed watching him and had an opportunity to discuss anything with him throughout not only Titans Twitter, but just through the entire Twitter universe, really. This has just hit everybody. And just ALS is just still just one of the most rampant diseases that continues to just plague this earth. And it just breaks our hearts that not only Tim Shaw has been dealing with this since 2014, it's now claimed another former Tennessee Titan. And obviously one of the greatest running backs that you could argue that ever laced up cleats. So there's just a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of emotion here, and there's just so much that we wish we could just truly understand. But I think the biggest thing we need to just understand first and foremost is CJ came out and he said he had a choice. And it was either he could quit or he can continue fighting. And he's fighting. And I think that's the biggest thing we need to take away from not only this announcement. It's not the fact that he has ALS. It's the fact that he's fighting it, and he will continue to fight it because he has so much to fight for.
Yeah, that was, there are moments in that interview that I feel like stick out. Obviously, the whole interview, if you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. Like, you need to go watch the whole interview, listen to, what he's talking about, and even, the signs that he kind of saw that led them going and getting different kinds of testing done. But, you mentioned one of the moments that really stuck out to me, Michael, and that's how, they basically told him, like, you have two options. You can just kind of sulk and let it overtake you, or you can fight. And, in the Chris Johnson way, like, I get, like, from that, I feel like competitor is not the right way, but, these guys don't really know give up. Like, it's, they're going to try and keep pushing forward. And, him saying, like, he's going to fight. And, I feel like while it's a very sad time, like, that is a positive that you can pull from it. And I see where What's Shaking says it in the chat, like, the positivity from him and how he's not just gonna sulk about it. He's gonna keep fighting, and they're trying to help find different ways to, maybe end up finding a cure for ALS, or a way to make it to where it's not such a drastic change over a short time. And then another moment that stuck out, and again, this was something that What's Shaking said in the chat, and like, man, this one, I was doing good getting through the interview until he brought this up, and then that was the moment where it was like even more of the ultimate gut punch as a dad with two daughters, and him saying that, last year he was able to pick his little girl up to blow out the candles on her birthday cake, and now, he can't do that. He can't even pick up a cup to drink out of. Man, that was like, at that point, which I'm at work at that point, but I'm crying in my office because it's like, man, that really puts it into perspective even more. And, something like this just puts life into perspective a little more. Like, I have to give credit to his wife and how she is beside him in this journey and fighting along with him and just there for him, supporting him. Like, that's that can be a lot to weigh on something, but she's right there with him like a champ and helping him fight along through this. And it's just, things like that, I feel like, are just moments that stick out even more throughout this interview.
It's the human aspect and the human nature, to feel the things that we felt today. And it's even all right to feel angry. This is a man that wasn't even 40 yet, that was enjoying his retirement, was watching his children grow, was enjoying being a husband, that was doing a pretty good job at becoming a up and coming scout, as he was at the Senior Bowl last year, discussing with young and up and coming players. And then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled right under his feet, and here we are today with a situation that just seems just unfathomable. I can understand, especially just people just feeling that it's just another situation of bad things happening to good people. And it's hard to understand anything just from that perspective of just why, and just why does these type of things continue to exist in a world where we have the capacity and the science and the knowledge that could possibly eradicate these things from being in existence. That's the very human element that just we reach into ourselves, and we have these discussion points to give ourselves just that clarity and just that almost release from these type of just situations that happen. And I'm not going to tell you that you can't be angry or that you shouldn't be angry, because that's your right. Understandably, it's a situation that's absolutely unfair and terrible. And the fact that it's happened to somebody that we've very much just grown to watch and love and just appreciate and wanted to see them just flourish throughout the rest of their life, that this just comes without any warning or any hesitation, it does seem unfair. But I still feel him coming on TV, sitting down and revealing to the world that he's going to continue this battle, because it's what's important, not because it's for any type of any perspective to like view him anything other than what he is. He is still Chris Johnson, regardless of his situation right now. His spirit remains, his heart remains. Everything that we witnessed and we were able to watch him do throughout the entire course of his career, whether you were a Titans fan, a Jets fan, or a Cardinals fan, even, we saw the best of him. We saw the beauty in him. And it's still very much there. And I think that's something that I truly appreciate, Tyler, because that's the beauty of the human element. This fight of the spirit within us that's not going to let us defer or lay down our arms because things are bad or hard. So, to get to a little bit of a lighter point, everybody's been posting on this all day long. This has been the hot button topic throughout just everywhere on the web. So I've got to see some incredible stories, some incredible photos, some incredible discussions and meetings involving Chris Johnson. Were there any that stood out to you, Tyler? I mean, there's a lot of great ones out there, but I'm sure there's a few that are probably just swimming in your mind still.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of them. I want to say this. Chris Johnson is one of those players that I never got a chance to meet him in person, but I always wished that I could have. And I'm seeing all of these stories of people meeting him and talking with him and about how good of a guy he was. And I guess it's just the magnitude of the news today, that's taken over my head and thoughts so much that I can't pick a story just out right this minute. Michael, if you've got one that you want to go ahead and share, I can let you do that while I try and recall what some of my favorites were.
One that definitely crossed my timeline that I got a really good chuckle out of, and I wish I could remember who posted this because it was a really great story, but it circulated and trended throughout Twitter most of the day. Fan at a car dealership had Chris Johnson come in, and he was apparently a Memphis fan, and CJ signed the helmet, but the way he signed it was they beat Memphis in that game. He put the score and the stats on the helmet.
Yeah, that
is just quintessential Chris Johnson.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I remembered seeing something about a car dealership. I just couldn't remember what the details were. But when I saw that was, even with the news going on today, that was one that put a little smile on my face. It's man, he got you there. That's the only thing you had for him to sign. Well, because there's times where you see where they'll have an athlete sitting down to sign a whole bunch of autographs on stuff, and they try and slip something in there to throw them off. And a lot of the times they'll just throw it to the side or something like that. But then you get times where they'll actually sign it, but they put some type of message on it. So, just seeing that Chris Johnson wasn't no, I'm not going to sign that. It's yeah, I'll sign that, but I'm going to give you a little reminder here of just how that game went.
And just throughout the whole day, I've just enjoyed seeing everybody's pictures of where they've had an opportunity to meet him, or they've had memorabilia that had been autographed, or just the little stories just about him, just even just hearing from former teammates just discussing just how much they appreciate the time that they've had with him, and they know that he's going to go through this thing and just fight it tooth and nail. And just the support's just been just amazing, just for a situation that's just been so just heart wrenching and just so frustrating, I guess is a good word to put. But I mean, from that perspective, Ty, I think you have to just understand it's really bringing out the best in everybody, especially in just a situation like this, because it's understandable that we're all frustrated and we're hurt for him, because this is something that nobody ever should go through. But in retrospect, there is good that is going through this. It's everybody that's coming together as a community to help celebrate him and just support him and his family in this time of need and uncertainty. And I think that's the beautiful aspect of it. And I mean, there's a lot more to talk about of it as well. But, I think just starting from that point, it's just situations like this, it definitely brings up just the mindset of Mr. Rogers, in times of trouble, or there's times of just bad situations, always look to the helpers. And I mean, there's just a slew of helpers out there today. And whether they know that they are or not, Ty, I mean, they're out there putting a lot of great support and good vibes and just a lot of just strong feelings for just the entire situation that's helping everyone out there that's dealing with it in their own way.
Yeah. And like you said, just obviously news like this, it's never fun to hear. It's heartbreaking when you hear it. But like you said, the way people have come together for support, and you get this with several different things. And I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it just gives you kind of that reminder of life. Like, no matter what you have going on, like today there could have been some inconvenience for me at work or on my way to work, or something that I'm just like, man, this is messing up my whole day. But things like this, it gives you that reminder of, like, of how unfair life can be, and how it, things for you could be a lot worse. And it all comes back still to, if you do end up finding yourself in these situations, like the supporting cast that you have around you. Like, yes, to an extent, people realize, like, for that supporting cast, that things can be harder on them as well, and they're having to go through some of this stuff, and helping, like Chris's family, having to help him through this. But at the same time, you may not realize just how much really falls on them, and how having that right supporting cast around you can make you even more willing to keep fighting going forward. And it's just seeing how people have come together over this. And I know that we're probably going to get to it some more throughout the show about ways that everyone could help going forward, like in ALS research, things like that. But another thing I want to highlight is the fact of, you know, CJ2K coming out, and he's not just doing this to get attention for himself and the battle that he's going through. He come out with this to bring even more attention to ALS and getting people to, try and come together more to help see if a cure can be found, or pointing out like early signs that could help you get to a doctor and catch it earlier on and have earlier testing.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the key thing here. There's still so much about ALS that we don't know about, and we're still trying to figure out how we can prevent this, how we can catch it before symptoms happen, especially in people that are going through this themselves. You know, Chris Johnson's just one of the many victims that's affected with ALS. And of course, our very own Tim Shaw has been battling this for almost a decade now. So, understandably, that it's important that we continue to do what we can to help support the ALS community, and of course, to give what we can. So I will personally make sure that we have a link to the ALS Foundation if you want to donate anything. There's been a great idea going online on Titan's Twitter. I mean, $28 for Chris Johnson and a dedication. I think that's a fantastic idea. Or give a little more if you can. That's fine. I think the biggest thing is it's an opportunity for us to stand up and to really help a community that desperately needs to find a cure for this, especially knowing that we have two of our very own that we're still trying to find a cure for them. And whatever happens in the long run, the important thing is that we're reaching out and we're trying to find a way to make things better and to help eradicate something that doesn't need to exist in the first place, because ALS is just absolutely horrendous. And the fact that it continues to be a part of the society, it's sickening and it's heartbreaking, but we can make change. And to start change, you have to be a part of the change. So I'll make sure to put that link up after the show's over for the ALS organization. Send whatever you can in a donation, dedicate it to anybody. You can dedicate it to CJ, dedicate it to CJ and Tim Shaw, or if you are personally someone that has a family member that's suffering with ALS, do that as well, because you understand what it's like to go through this situation. Our biggest thing is to reach out to the community and to be a part of the solution. So, Tyler, let's go on a little bit on the lighter side, because I definitely feel like there's a lot of good things we should be talking about, especially to celebrate Chris Johnson, because he's a person that obviously has meant so much to us as Tennessee Titan fans, or whether you watched him on the Jets or the Cardinals. They can jump in on this too, and that's fine. I have no issue with that. Today's about sharing the specialness of what CJ meant to everybody, and whether he was playing for us or for the other teams that he had an opportunity to play for, you guys have every right to have just as much memories of him as we do. So I just want to make sure that don't be selfish with him. CJ's for the people. So I'm definitely going to ask, what was one of your favorite moments of Chris Johnson when you got an opportunity to watch him?
Yeah, and Michael, I figured this question would be coming, and I put, I really thought about this throughout the day, because I knew that we were going to be doing this show tonight. Like you said, we had talked and decided just to dedicate this whole show to talking about Chris Johnson. And I didn't get the chance when I was younger to really go to any Titans games and watch them in person. It was always watching on TV. The first Titans game that I actually got to go to was I was in high school, and one of my best buddy and a guy that I'm still really good friends with today, he invited me to go with him and his family to a game, and the year was 2009. So we know how special that season was for Chris Johnson. It was
not so much starting out, though. Let's just build that. Let's build a little tension there.
Well, the
start of that season was really something less to be desired.
Well, and this was, I believe it was I could be wrong. I'm fact checking myself here. Yeah, it was week 2 of that season when they played the Texans. They hosted the Texans in Nashville, and it was funny because my buddy, he didn't really buy into how the speed that Chris Johnson had. Like, because my buddy, he played football, and he was like, man, I don't know about the 4.24. Like, he didn't really buy into it. But then there was a play, and the play that happened was, I believe it was in the first quarter. They motioned Chris Johnson out wide, and for some reason, no one on the Texans defense decided to go out there with him. And Kerry Collins took the snap and just floated it out there to him. Up the sideline, Chris Johnson went for the 69-yard touchdown. And, so besides seeing that big play, and of course this is after he had already had the 57-yard rushing touchdown, to score the first touchdown of the game. My buddy looks at me, he goes, okay, I believe the speed now. He was like, guys on that defense took every correct angle that they should have been taken to try and get him, and he outran the angles. He was like, I believe it now. And that memory has just stuck with me for forever. The fact that it was the first game that I got to go see in person, I get to see Chris Johnson have this massive day. Only downside, Titans did end up losing that game, but Chris Johnson had a day that day, and that stuck out to me. And specifically, like I said, that play, that will, for all of those moments combined, that is probably always going to be my favorite Chris Johnson play ever.
So for me, I really had to think about it because there's so many great ones. I mean, you definitely think about the 94-yard touchdown against the Jets on Monday Night Football. Superb effort by him. But I had to go a little bit deeper, and I think genuinely it was the game that I fell in love with him, just as a person and a player. It was in 2008, back in October. They played the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. He broke loose for a 66-yard touchdown, and as soon as he scored, he ran over to a little stage platform where there were drums, and he jumped up on there and he played the bongos, and I lost my mind. I never laughed so hard in my life, and I just fell in love with him. Just from his personality standpoint, I was like, this is my guy. I absolutely love this. I have never forgotten that image. It is just, if I could have any picture of Chris Johnson that I could just show to any casual fan and just show just what is quintessential Chris Johnson, it would be that photo for me.
Another great moment there. I mean, and I'm interested if people come back and rewatch this show, make it to this point, like make sure you leave a comment of like your favorite Chris Johnson play, moment, whatever it may be, because like there's so many options, really,
And there's no
and
wrong options. Not at all.
no, I mean another moment that comes to my mind is, and I'm pretty sure it was another. I think it was around 90-yard touchdown. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was the one against like the Jags where he breaks through the line. And, you're always just so used to seeing Chris Johnson just outrun everybody. But he lowers his shoulder and just trucks a dude, keeps his balance, bounces up, and then outruns everyone. And it's like, okay, a little, some power with the speed there.
And I'll tell you what, man, those matchups between Chris Johnson and Maurice Jones-Drew were just something to behold. The fact that I can just sit back and watch them now, especially knowing that we won most of those,
Right.
those were just some great offensive matchups, just where two running backs were just beating the crap out of the defenses.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give Jones-Drew credit, man. He just was hard to get a hold of and just get stopped, because when the momentum hit with him, he was impossible to stop. And I mean, I'll touch on another point quick. I'll give a shout out to the Jaguars today for showing a lot of just class today, especially putting out a post for CJ. That was just so awesome. Great picture with him and Maurice Jones-Drew. Just, it was a class act all the way. So I will tip my hat to them today for that gesture.
Yeah, because when it came down to it, like obviously I expected the Titans to say something. I expected the Jets and Cardinals to both say something about it, but I didn't know if any other NFL teams would really do anything post-wise about it. So, seeing the Jaguars do that, I'm like, all right, I gotta tip my hat for some respect there.
And I mean, throughout the NFL, it was many teams coming out and just giving respect and roses to Chris Johnson today. So I definitely want to give them a shout out as well. The ones I definitely saw, Atlanta was one of them. The Cardinals made sure they came out and just paid their respects as well. Of course, nothing against Cardinals or Jets fans when he played with them. I mean, they have every right to show remorse and show their memories as well, because he had stops with them, and that's fine. As I said, Chris Johnson was a man of the people, and he really was a great interactor of the fans, especially when they had a chance to meet with him. From some of the stories that I've got to read, I mean, hey, one of the best runs he had when he wasn't a Titan was one of those runs when he was a Cardinal, where they thought they had him down, and then he had that little 35-yard extra scamper, almost took it to the house.
Yep.
So, I mean, just a great memory right there. And countless teammates. And, it's just been just very reflective, especially on that aspect, when you're someone that played alongside him and just had that opportunity to see him on the field and just witness that greatness. And for those that didn't, I mean, those coming out and showing support as well. I mean, Derrick Henry being one of them, showing just so much grace and class as he always has. I can only imagine just the heartache and disappointment in that situation that he feels as well.
Yeah, and that was, I don't know, maybe because it's two all-time great Titans, and obviously you're wearing the shirt of the Mount Rushmore. Both CJ and King Henry go on. I mean, they're on that shirt, and seeing Derrick Henry post about it, like, that was another moment that's like, man, just kind of hitting home more. So
And I mean, it's just been a day of just great admiration and reflection, especially from other teammates as well. And one that had just come out and said that they were just truly inspired by him and just shared their wisdom with how they just feel that how Chris is going to beat this situation as their own Tim Shaw. And as I said, Tyler, he's one that's already been dealing with ALS since 2014. He's been a really big mainstay in Titans culture and throughout our franchise. And we appreciate Tim, and we have been rooting for Tim ever since that diagnosis. But now I find I brought this up to you early this morning. I find beauty in this because there is, in a sense of just two teammates that had played on the field together, that are going through this horrible situation together, and now they have someone to lean on. And I feel that, with Chris's mindset and the way that he puts himself in and day out through just a competitive standpoint and just the personality that he brings, and just the fact that Tim's been battling this thing for over a decade and he's still standing and still showing that, he's going to live life regardless of this thing. I just get the sense that this is just an amazing opportunity for two friends and teammates to fight this out together and really just lean on one another, especially in a time of just uncertainty and just frustration.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things where I was seeing some things, and obviously, in the interview that Chris Johnson did today, he talked about how, the doctors essentially told them, or did tell them, like, get your affairs in order and everything. And then, obviously you see how much it's affected him in a year. And you go back to Tim Shaw, who found out in 2014. And, even I think I remember seeing where, like, maybe in 2019, Tim Shaw was doing some speaking and he was still kind of able to do the speaking himself for the most part. So, and that's like 5 years after his diagnosis, and just seeing how different it has, like how quickly it's affected Chris Johnson, and how for Tim Shaw, how it affected him differently throughout that. But, you mentioned the two teammates like coming together, battling it, and even, Tim Shaw kind of giving some flowers to Chris Johnson because, now from talking with CJ, Tim Shaw has, even like he's been injected with some new hope. Like, it's one of those things where when you've been battling something for so long, you get complacent at times, and it can be easy to get complacent. And, it's now Chris Johnson has inspired Tim Shaw to, maybe not settle and to come out of those comfort zones. And, I'm looking at it now, an article from PK where Tim Shaw said that he's got a couple of he got a couple of treatments a couple of weeks ago, and he's joined some more clinical trials. And, again, just bragging on CJ, saying that Tim Shaw doesn't know if he's done a lot for him, but CJ's already done a lot for Tim, just in how positive he's been.
So I think with the last 10 minutes, I think it's good to bring up this point because I think this is a good finishing spot for this show, especially for the subject matter we've covered and just how somber the day's been. And I want to end it on a high note with something that can be just inspirational for everybody for the future. Whatever happens with Chris Johnson within this situation, I know that the right thing going forward is to make sure that we give him his moment while he's here and that we show our appreciation while we can. Because I'm not going to try and second guess anything. There's always hope. There's always a chance he can beat this and be one of those rare rare score moments where he beats the odds. But I'm also going to be somewhat realistic, and I want to make sure you never have an opportunity to not have a moment to leave anything unsaid. So, setting up the narrative, Tyler, for 2026, we've seen a lot of great suggestions for the Titans organization moving forward on this, and I think it's worth talking out a few and think what could be the best way going forward. We've seen jersey retirements. We've seen, special commemorative patches. We've seen adding him to the Ring of Honor. What to you would feel the most appropriate to honor Chris Johnson's legacy as a Tennessee Titan?
Oh man. I'm definitely like it comes to two of them for me, and that is the jersey retirement and the Ring of Honor. And this is something that actually just like literally in the last minute really came to me. I think Ring of Honor definitely needs to be top of the list, and it needs to be done in week one. And the reason I say in week one is because obviously we play the Jets that week, and it's nothing to do with the game in general. It's the fact of CJ having played for those two teams, the Titans and Jets. Like, even if Jets fans aren't as tied to him as Titans fans are, that gives a moment for everyone there, even more so because he's played for those two franchises, to put him in the Ring of Honor then.
And I have no issue with that. I think it's a phenomenal way to show true respect for somebody that has done so much for this franchise in such a short amount of time. 2009 NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He still holds the most yards from scrimmage in a season that hasn't even been remotely touched yet, even with an extra game. So, of course, Hall of Fame debates will still be made, and I think they still should be, especially with the records that he broke within his time frame. And I mean, they're good discussion points. But here's what I would do, Tyler. And I don't think a lot of teams have done something like this, but I do think it's something that not only honors Chris Johnson, but also Titans that have meant a great deal to this franchise, whether they're here or they're not here. And what my proposal is a walk of champions. That basically we lay out like a very unique brick walkway leading up to the stadium, and we place about 5 statues all the way down leading up there. And the people that I would commemorate statues for are men that I feel that have given so much to this franchise, whether it was through playing, whether it's through contribution, whether it's through their acts of just great reflection to the public, to where they meant so much to us. The 5 people that I would include in this walk of legends would be Steve McNair, Frank Wycheck, Rob Baronis, Chris Johnson, and Tim Shaw. I feel that would give a new perspective on walking to the stadium each Sunday as soon as they complete it. It would give a new Titans tradition to where fans could just walk by and just touch the foot of each player as they head to the stadium and just give that just kind of good vibe. And just, it's something that I don't think anybody's really done on the NFL level. And I think that would just be something that would not only honor two men that are fighting through just a horrific just situation that no one should be put through, but it also honors Titans that we've lost in the past that I would love to see have another opportunity to be honored as well.
Man, Michael, that is a great shout there. And on something that I hadn't really thought of that, but that I like that idea. And even as you were describing it, I was picturing it in my head and how it could look. And yeah, that would be awesome.
And it's not to disregard anybody's idea that if they want to put him in the Ring of Honor, I'm all for it. I think it's very appropriate. If they want to wear a commemorative patch or a helmet decal, I'm all for that. I just want to make sure we give this man his roses while he's here. And of course, it's important to me as well that while we're going through this entire situation and we have just heavy hearts and just heavy minds through the whole aspect, it's to not forget that we can make a difference. And I want to end the show on this note. It is important to know that ALS research still needs your help, that they still need to find a cure, and it takes any type of donation that you can give that'll help get them to the finish line and end ALS once and for all and eradicate it from existence on this plane. So I will leave a link in the show tonight. If you're willing to donate anything you can to the ALS Association, hit the link. If you want to donate for Chris Johnson, do 28 for 28. That's been trending online today. And I think that'd be a phenomenal just contribution and dedication, especially for someone that means so much to Titans and Jets and Cardinals fans. So I feel if your heart's in the right place and you feel that you have anything to give today, do it because you want to help the ALS community and help eradicate this just foul disease that's just ruined lives and ruined families, and give the people that in that organization the tools and the necessary boost that they can to continue to put the work in to help rid us of this once and for all. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank everyone that left the comments. And if you leave any more comments tonight or anything after the show, we'll definitely make sure that we'll give you a shout out on next Monday's show as well. So, of course, round of applause to you guys for showing up and showing out. You guys, because it is important, especially in situations like this, whether we have to talk about something fun or something serious in this manner, that we will continue to put out great and meaningful content to you, the viewer, whether it's Titans or NFL related, every chance we can get to. So make sure you follow us at the Power Hour 615 or at the Titan Upload Network so we can continue to give you all that great content that we put out each week. And of course, I also have to give a shout out to Tyler for helping us continue to put out some great shorts on our YouTube page. Check that out as well. We got some fun stuff up there. We've got some serious stuff as well. And we've got some insightful stuff. It's important that we put out just a little bit of just everything for you. It's like a little smorgasbord. Sometimes you get a little bit of everything, and that's fine. Spoil yourself. That's what we do on our show, and that's important. Well, Tyler, before we get out of here, of course, you get the last word of the show. So send us out with something insightful.
Help if I would unmute here. I feel like what's appropriate for the last words for this show it comes from like what Chris Johnson was talking about. No matter what life may throw at you, it may seem unfair. You may have a sickness or disease that hits you, but you can go one of two ways. You can just curl up and let it consume you, or you can keep fighting. And I know, my family has, especially my mom, she's battling her own stuff, and the way she keeps fighting. So I've already been seeing that and how having that mindset can make a difference. So, that's the final words, is just keep fighting.
Sure, words couldn't have been said. And of course, shout out to my mom as well, for she's a cancer survivor, so she knows what it's like to battle this thing. In any type of situation, you can definitely just overcome with just love, patience, and a lot of hard work. But at the end of the day, it's what pays off. But shout out to you, Mom. Love you, Mina. And of course, we love you all as well. And we hope you have a great week, regardless of the news. But of course, our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to Chris Johnson and his family. And we wish the best and nothing but the best for them going forward. Regardless, 2026 is a year we want to make sure that they get the roses to him that he truly deserves. And of course, our appreciation as well for everything that he's done for not only this franchise, but for the Jets and the Cardinals as well, and just in the NFL as a whole. So that'll do it for us tonight. We will be back next Monday. We'll try and do the show that we are initially going to do, so it'll be on a little lighter note. At least we hope so. So for Tyler Staggs, I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour. And as always, take care and tighten up.
Tighten up.
You're watching the Titan Upload Network.